In the last video, we talked about mysterious cases of people suddenly disappearing from our world and being transferred to a parallel world. If you haven't seen it, you can watch it on my channel. Today, we'll continue the theme of other dimensions and look at some more real stories. Please support the channel with your subscription, like the video, and we'll get started. Black Mountain. One of the most mysterious places on our planet is the Black Mountain, which is located 16 miles from Cooktown, Queensland. Australia is still a pretty unexplored continent, so there are plenty of mysteries left to uncover. The mountain got its name because of its structure, which is a haphazard pile of black granite rocks. The local Aborigines call it the Mountain of Death. People avoid going near it unless they have to, because they believe that demons live in its belly and can eat people. The first officially registered case of a person going missing was in 1877. One of the locals went in search of their oxen and ended up wandering into a labyrinth of huge rocks. After that, this man, as well as the lost cattle, was never seen again. And exactly 30 years later, in 1907, in the same places, Constable Ryan, who was chasing a fugitive criminal, disappeared without a trace. If you think that's the end of the weirdness, you're wrong. The strange disappearances continued for years, and they continue to this day. For example, the mountain once swallowed up several gold miners. Shepherds disappeared without a trace. And soon a police escort for a local Aboriginal tracker disappeared. They were desperate to solve the mystery of the mysterious mountain. Of course, the local police tried to investigate these cases, but unfortunately they came to nothing. Bamboo Gorge is located in the mountainous area of South China's Sichuan province. It is located at an elevation of 2.5 miles. Locals have already nicknamed it the Black Gorge, and another of its names sounds like the Chinese Bermuda Triangle. According to the official news agency of China, more than 100 people have disappeared here without a trace. In 1950, about 100 soldiers who tried to find shelter there from the advancing communist troops disappeared without a trace in the gorge. That same year, the private plane of a major American banker seemed to vanish into oblivion in the area. The plane crashed and then seemed to vaporize. And in 1962, a similar fate befell 5 Chinese geologists. One of the 2 guides also disappeared with them. The second guide who survived shared an eerie story with the world. He said that suddenly everything around him plunged into a thick fog, and there was a terrible noise. He lost consciousness. When he woke up, his companions were already gone. There was no one around. The subway. This happened in an ordinary Moscow subway. On May 14, 1999, at around 9 p.m., a train left the underground tunnel between Izmailovsky Park and Pervomaiskoye stations. This track is partially above ground with an exit to the edge of Izmailovsky Forest. The train continued moving, and people were looking out the windows or reading. Everything was normal. Suddenly, darkness fell sharply behind the windows. The passengers didn't have time to be scared because the darkness quickly disappeared and the sun came back out. The forest was still there, but now there were people running in soldiers' overcoats along the edge of the forest. Explosions were going off. Then machine gun and propeller shots were fired right between the forest and the train. One by one, and in groups, cavalrymen with sabers galloped by. The situation unfolding before the passengers' eyes was reminiscent of a Civil War battle. But as the witnesses of this strange phenomenon assured them, it did not look like a movie or another amateur production. Fire and dying people looked as natural as possible. However, powerful explosions and blood also looked natural. The phenomenon dissipated as suddenly as it appeared. The train stopped, opened the doors, and the announcer said, "Be careful, the doors are closing. The next station is Pervomaiskoye," and the subway went back into the tunnel. Everything was normal at Pervomaiskoye station. There were no cavalrymen, horses, sabers, or explosions. It was like any other day in peacetime. But the passengers who survived those minutes still remember everything that happened with horror. The most common version is that the passengers of that train had to observe timekeeping. It's a phenomenon when the temporal thread of the past comes in contact with the future and the present. And a person caught in this so-called gap can be in the past and in the present at the same time while watching historical events unfold. I'd also like to share some historical information with you. One of the founders of Rome, Romulus, disappeared without a trace during a regular review of his troops. In an instant, a strong gust of wind blew through, and Romulus seemed to vanish into thin air. At the time, the explanation was that the gods wanted to take him to themselves. In the past, wrestler and Olympic winner Cleomedes tried to escape from his pursuers. He climbed into a large chest in the temple of Artemis and hid there. His pursuers soon caught up with him and opened the chest. Cleomedes disappeared like a puff of smoke. It's unclear whether this was help from Artemis or if Cleomedes was more complex than he seemed. In 1579, in the French city of Arles, on Trinity Day, the devout daughter of a local merchant, Pierrette Darelais, was carrying a figurine of Saint Clara in a procession at the local church. Suddenly, before the eyes of many believers, including the clergy, the girl began to become transparent and soon disappeared with the figurine. The last thing anyone saw was a muslin veil on the floor, torn from her hair by a sudden gust of wind. That's what the eyewitnesses said, and that's the last anyone saw of her. It was November 1807. The English diplomat Benjamin Bathurst, according to his servants and the servants of the hotel, seemed to fall through the ground when he got into the carriage. But what happened? It happened in the German town of Perlberg, near Hamburg. Along with the unfortunate man, a folder with important documents disappeared, and the sable coat he was going to wear on the road. By the way, the money and other valuables in the carriage remained in place. It's hard to believe, but the search for the diplomat, who mysteriously disappeared, lasted another 25 years with no results. The last story in this video is about a French adventurer. Dieter Ritchie was trapped in the fortress of Wislustia in Danzig. During another prisoner walk in the courtyard, Dieter Ritchie began to disappear right in front of the bewildered prisoners. The guards were no less confused. When the man vanished into thin air, his shackles fell to the ground with a clang. Some people believe that there are other worlds, other times, and other spaces that exist alongside our own. The physics of space can be similar to ours, but it can also be completely different. For example, in some places, witchcraft and magic are real. In other places, time flows completely differently. There have been cases where people who accidentally fell into a portal to another world were absent from Earth for quite a long time, while in the parallel world, it was just minutes. I'd appreciate it if you could support this video by liking it, subscribing to the channel, and leaving any comments you have on this topic. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.